Last weekend, took my wife to the ballet, the Nutcracker. I've never been to a ballet before, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, if you would have told me, hey, let's go to a ballet like 10, 20 years ago, I'd probably be like, nah, I don't want to go see that. But wow, just watching those dancers, just the control, the athleticism, the power, the grace, highly impressive. Watching it, thinking to myself, that's how I want my posing routines to look. Took some notes, some mental notes. So I think I might be going in that direction with my next posing routine. But the show itself was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it. Overall, we had a great time. And after the show was over, we went out to lunch, and thankfully it was a refeed day. That kind of helped me to maneuver the food a little bit. Now, with that said, I still was very mindful about what I was ordering on the menu. So I kept it a little bit more bodybuilder friendly, and I went with salmon, brown rice, mixed vegetables. And the way I track that, like, I'm not busting out my cell phone on the spot, looking up the numbers and inputting it, because that's a distraction away from my family time. Like, my family wants me present. They don't want me sitting there on a cell phone during lunch while they're trying to converse with me. So I kind of just take mental notes. I estimate about where those macros are on that, and I tend to overestimate it. So for example, on the brown rice, instead of it looking like 3/4 cups of rice, I'm like, hey, that's a cup of rice. So that way, if there is, let's say, a little bit of discrepancies, then I'm accounting for that, and I'm still staying in line with my targets and my goals. So that's how I maneuver in social settings when I'm out and about and I'm eating at restaurants. Try to find bodybuilder friendly foods, estimate, overestimate, but again, not pulling out my cell phone, making sure I'm staying present, because the time with the people there, like your loved ones, family, friends, or what have you, that's far more important. So I just want to make sure that, I'm giving them my all. And, contest prep, not an excuse to be selfish, self-absorbed, in a sense, ignore those around you. And then also expect people around you to understand what you're doing and have to cater to me. So I want to make sure that they're put first before myself. So that's how I manage the social settings. The rest of the week, as far as like execution on protocols, I did the best I could to nail down like my ranges as far as the macros. Step count, that was the biggest challenge. The first 2 weeks was really trying to hone in on the step count target. And for me, the window to make that happen is first thing in the morning. The only issues with that is it's dark outside, very cold. I'm not one who wants to go out there in the dark around my neighborhood. The neighborhood is good where I'm at, but there's some surrounding ones where I tend to walk by that a little sketchy. So I want to keep myself safe. Dad, I'm a husband first, so of course they want me in one piece. So walking in the mornings outside, not ideal. I know one of you guys mentioned, hey, get a treadmill. I've had treadmills in the past, and I've wore out my treadmills. Like my 2002 prep, I wore a treadmill out the entire prep, like literally destroyed it. Of course I tried to maintain it, changed a couple parts here and there, but for the amount of money I paid for that treadmill, it only lasted one contest season. I know I can buy a used one, but I just don't want to hassle and deal with the maintenance on those things. So it's really not something that I want to mess with. I don't feel like it's too ideal for my situation. I do have a recumbent bike here in my garage, in my gym. And that's something that I brought up with Alberto. My first check into him was like, hey, it's a little bit of a struggle to get the step, trying to get steps in like after work. It's very unpredictable because of dad duties. My son tested for yellow belt on Monday, so I really don't want to miss that. Plus I have to get my own training in. So it's just really hard for me to find those times and those windows to get those steps in. It's very unpredictable. And the last thing that I want to be is inconsistent, like the Raiders, my team, the Raiders, very inconsistent. 6 wins, 6 losses, very frustrating watching them every single Sunday because you don't know what you're going to get. I don't want Alberto to kind of deal with that with my check-ins. Like, he's not going to, did Jeff get his steps in? Did he not get his steps in? How do I adjust them? So I don't want that. So I just brought it up to him in the first check-in. That very challenging to make it happen because of the constraints in my life. And being that is a great coach, he took that into consideration and he said, okay, let's get on the bike in the morning. Let's get about 25 minutes in there, and we'll equate that to roughly 2,000 or 3,000 steps, and we'll kind of go from there. So that's the goal. So moving forward, get up in the morning, first thing, have a cup of coffee, come out here in the garage, even though it is fairly cold in here. We'll knock out 25 minutes and we'll get that in, and then we'll move on with the rest of the day. The next week or two, my goal is to try to solidify that, be as consistent as possible. Usually the first month is like kind of that window to kind of knock out all these kinks. That's why I think it's super important when you are figuring out what's your timeline for contest prep. Like, you have to take these things into consideration. Contest date, you're like, okay, I got 20 weeks to get ready. I got 20 pounds to lose. It's probably not a good idea to start 20 weeks out. Maybe give you a month, 2 months extra to account for the life stuff, just the adversity as far as execution, because you're trying to set up your flow, that type of thing, plateaus, stalls, anniversaries, birthdays, social events, holidays, that type of thing. So it's always a good idea to give yourself a little bit of extra time. And again, super happy that I reached out to Alberto a year in advance and said, hey, let's map this out. But we're still in the process of really ironing out all those kinks, but I'm pretty confident over the next couple of weeks, we're really going to get the ball rolling as far as my daily flow, the execution. Therefore, if the execution is more on point, it's more consistent, then it's far easier to assess the actual data that's coming in, and it's a lot easier to make really good adjustments, ones that are going to be very accurate. So I'm sure my coach is going to appreciate the fact that we really are fine-tuning the back end as far as my end, as far as the execution is concerned. The diet, I pretty much have that on point. I'm really good with those ranges. The progress is starting to happen, leaning down a little bit, still a ways to go, but I like the direction that we're headed in. As far as training, I'm out here in the cold right now, getting ready to do some deadlifts. Yeah, deadlifts. It's one of those movements like deadlift, squat. You always get those questions. Do you have to do those movements in order to attain a really good physique? And the way I get exercise selection from a perspective of like, do I have to do this or whatnot, is if there's an exercise that I can really get good mind-muscle connection on, I can really just execute it really well, and the intended musculature I'm targeting, I feel the stress on it, I feel the pump, it just feels rock solid, good technique and all that good stuff. That's one perspective to look at. Another one is the exercise safe for me? Obviously deadlift could be classified as a little more risky, but I think if your form is solid in your programming in a way where it's fairly safe and predictable, then I think there's nothing wrong with it. And the last one would be like, do I enjoy doing the movement? So the last thing that I want to do is like some exercise that I absolutely hate doing, because I'm not going to be, willing to push myself on it. I'll probably just go through the motions, and therefore it's not going to be very effective. So for me, it's about form, technique, mind-muscle connection, is safe and comfortable, and do I enjoy doing the movement? Now, exercise selection, while I'm going through my contest prep, like right now, it's early stages. I have a decent amount of body fat on me still, so pretty good leveraging. I'm not overly hungry, so I'm still have decent energy. So these bigger lifts like deadlift, squat, I can probably still do those without any issues. I know we have to look at how much fatigue and exercise is going to generate, but I'm not at that stage yet where I have to really worry about that too much. And also the context of my recovery days, like I'm only training 4 days per week max, so I still have 3 good recovery days there. So it's not like I'm getting wiped out by the deadlift and I have to go in there the next day and do some other big lifts. I make sure to organize things fairly well. When I get deeper into the prep, when I start to get leaner, if let's say step count's getting really high, or food levels getting really low or something like that, then of course I might have to take another look at these bigger lifts. Maybe it's, hey, I can still keep them in, but I need to be a little more strategic. Maybe I'm doing my refeeds before those big lifts. Maybe those big lifts are coming off of a rest day and a refeed day combined, so those types of things. And if that's not going to, let's say, do the trick, then therefore I might have to eventually go away from these bigger lifts and go to less invasive exercises that still touch the same musculature and it still gets the job done, but without as much fatigue. And I know some might say, well, why not just do that now? Well, I enjoy these bigger lifts right now. When I go into a training session, it's getting me amped and pumped up to do deadlifts. It's getting me pumped up to do squats. It's getting me pumped to do like leg press and whatnot. So again, that enjoyment, I think it has to be there in order to really get the juices flowing. So you're more willing to push yourself when you are in fact training. As far as volume, it's a question I get all the time. Jeff, how do you get away with doing so little? Now, keep in mind perspective, like I've been training for 35 years. So if you look at it from a big picture perspective, you look at my 35 years of training, doing the amount of volume I'm doing now versus someone else who's maybe in year number 5. And even if they are training 6 days a week, hitting each body part 3 times per week and doing, let's say, upwards of the higher recommended, as far as doing 20 sets per body part, I still have done far more volume than that particular person because I have 35 years of accumulation there. And I think that's far more important than what we're doing in the moment. Like your acute volume, it does matter, obviously, but it's the accumulation of volume over time is what probably matters more. And you also have to take into consideration that you have to be able to recover from the amount of workload that you're doing. So if you're noticing that, when you're heading into the gym, there's a little bit of resentment there, because maybe you're a little fatigued, then that's an indication that maybe, you're doing maybe a little too much. So every time I step foot in the gym, I want to feel ready. I want to feel like I'm going to attack my training session, not be resentful or have hesitation there. But again, I want to be like, more times than not, 100%, no resentment, just getting in there and putting in a good effort. And when I'm actually in the gym, priority is always form, technique, make sure I'm moving from point A to point B as flawlessly as possible. Then of course, it's like, let me see if I can beat the logbook. Let me see if I can add load or reps or both. And at any particular point in time, if I can't, or I'm just not feeling it, then I have no issue backing down a little bit, dropping load down, maybe, stopping short on the rep target, leaving more reps in reserve. So that's gonna make sure that I stay fairly safe. So that way, 1, I'm not getting injured, but then 2, I'm not getting as tired, as fatigued, so therefore recovery is a little bit better. And then that way, when I get back into the gym the next day, I'm good to go. I can go at it again. And like my good coach likes to say, 1 rep isn't going to make you, but 1 rep can break you. So I really have that in the back of my mind that, anytime I'm feeling a little bit off, it's okay to back down. It's the recovery, like the rest days. I don't think that gets talked about enough. I think, in this day and age where, everybody wants to do more and more volume, and, oftentimes it means piling on more training days, piling on more sets. That's one thing that our injury prevention specialist, Nick Licamilli, has taught me, is how to really look at workload management. Because oftentimes a lot of these little aches and pains that we pick up, it's more due to repetitive use. So it really comes down to, we need to manage that workload quite a bit. So I want to go into my training sessions feeling fresh. I want to feel pain-free, because I know if that's the case, I'm going to perform better. So if I'm lifting heavier, I'm doing more reps over time. Therefore, my physique is going to slowly but surely get better and better and better. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you guys have a great week. Be safe, treat each other well, and of course, train smart. And we'll talk more next week.